Welcome back. So many of us are so keen to return to traveling. Many of us are keen to go on holiday. Of course, it isn't just about going on a holiday. However, according to Bloomberg TV, that came out this morning, slump in tourism caused by COVID-19 is going to cost the global economy over $4 trillion in 2020 and 2021. 60% of this loss is going to take place in low and middle income countries. As safety has taken center stage, how travel has changed, I am delighted to be joined now by the Managing Director and CEO of Indian Hotels Company, and the owner of the Taj, where I am very happily seated now. Welcome. We've heard from the Minister of Gambia. You have a very strong history of tourism, strong heritage. The Taj Group was established in 1903. This isn't the first storm you've weathered. Tell me, from where you're sitting now, what's your outlook for the next couple of years?
Firstly, thank you for having me and good afternoon. It's very difficult to predict the very short term, that's the next 3 to 6 months, because a lot needs to be done in alignment in terms of the travel protocols, in terms of vaccine passports, quarantine, PCR tests, etc., etc. So I think eventually, let's say in 6 months to 1 year, I think things will begin to settle down and travel will be back. And travel will be back much stronger than ever before, as history has proven it on all occasions. And that's a fundamental need of the global citizens. And yes, we have lost 4 trillion in the world economy in terms of tourism, but the long-term outlook was, is, and remains positive.
Tell me how this affected your workplaces and the people who work in your hotels.
Well, the people who work in the hotels have firstly stood up very bravely, especially in places in a country like India. And as it is the India Global Forum, let me focus on the India part. They have proven to be working very well as frontline workers, hosting the medical staff in hotels, serving foods to medical staff, food to migrant worker population. We at the Taj Group served last year 3 million meals, and after the second wave, we did another million meals. We hosted more than 100,000 bed nights, or totaling 75,000 room nights. So I think a phenomenal job was firstly done by our associates in becoming more or less frontline workers. The second part, which is very important, is that we have been able to vaccinate more than 90% of our staff. So I think that's a very positive development, so that our hotels are a safe place to be in. Third, we put in a protocol which was needed based on the guidelines of WHO and the Ministry of Health in India, in terms of under what circumstances we can operate, in terms of social distancing, in terms of how and when restaurants and hotels can be open. And that differed from state to state because of the federal structure in India. And I think the industry did quite a good job. Where we could not help ourselves is obviously the lockdowns and the curfews. So the business was demolished. I mean, the Q1 of last year, in certain weeks, we were almost at zero revenue, because if there is a lockdown, there is no revenue. So I think the industry has shown resilience, has shown courage, and I'm sure will be innovative enough to bounce back.
What's your message for some of the leaders from the richer parts of the world? You mentioned that the uncertainty lies around the vaccine passport issue, the PCRs. For a family of 4 or 5, in my case, to go on holiday, the number of PCR tests and the pure cost involved is extraordinary. What could get people moving faster, do you think?
I think one of the responsibilities of the world leaders at this time has to be to get alignment in the next 3 to 6 months on travel protocols amongst nations, amongst regions. And I think people who have both the vaccines and even on top of that PCR negative test should be allowed to travel freely. And if the quarantine regulations cannot be relaxed for security reasons, then at least after a 5-day period, if you had a PCR negative test, you should be allowed to move. That will help encourage travel. But more important than travel is the contribution this sector has had to the global tourism, which is north of 10% historically, as well as to creation of jobs. And almost, pre-COVID, 25% of all the new jobs created globally were directly or indirectly related to tourism. So I think it's a very important factor for lives and livelihoods, and the global leadership must do everything to ensure that right process and procedure is in place so that travel can start, seamlessly.
Puneet, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for the fantastic surroundings that we're in here today at the India Global Forum.